All right, are we all together now?
I believe we're missing one board member.
Oh, right.
I am going to ask our administrative techno. Okay, so we are we're just waiting. So we'll just. I think that the link is.
Oh, here she is. Here she is.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, we are ready then.
All right, we're ready to begin. Good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 19th meeting. I move the approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is my report. So good morning again. We'll vote on the public funds 21 elections in just a few moments. We will approve public funds payments to dozens of candidates running for city council on up to mayor. This is the earliest public funds payment ever made in a citywide election cycle. Earlier payments were an important improvement to the program, among many that were adopted by the voters and legislated by the city council in the past 2 years. These improvements include the new 8-to-1 match, which has been a huge success thus far. More than 90% of candidates have opted for the new 8-to-1 program. This is a clear vote of confidence for funding city elections with small dollar contributions and public financing. The payments made today will be based on the candidates' disclosures that were filed with the CFB as of July 15th, 2020.
You've frozen, Rick.
The public. Thank you. I'll back up a little bit. The payments made today. Am I unfrozen now, Amy?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. The payments made today will be based on the candidate disclosures that were filed with the CFB as of July 15th, 2020. There will be multiple additional opportunities for candidates to reach the public funds payment thresholds and receive public funds in the future. For instance, the disclosure deadline for 2021 candidates is January 15th. Candidates may be eligible for public funds payments based on those disclosures in the following payment scheduled in mid-February. All told, the board will make 8 public funds payments prior to the primary elections in June.
Business.
Elections. There were just 4 prior to the primary elections beginning just weeks before the election. These charges were adopted by voters in 2018. Is somebody who's making some background noise, please, if you can mute yourself. Thank you.
Julius, please mute yourself.
All right, thanks. Let me back up again. All told, the board will make 8 public funds payments prior to the primary elections in June. In 2017, in previous elections, there were just 4 payments prior to the primary election, beginning just weeks before the election. These changes were adopted by voters in 2018 and set into law by the City Council in 2019. So in many ways, today's payment has been years in the making, which makes this a very exciting day for us as well. Implementing these changes to the program.
You've frozen again.
Okay. Implementing changes to the program has required significant work by Executive Director Loprest and the CFB staff. So I want to thank the Executive Director and the staff for that work and for your dedication to making this program work. With that, I will turn to Naomi Zadora for a report on the work of the CFB's Voter Assistance Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer.
Last week, the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee held a virtual public hearing where New Yorkers testified about their voting experiences in the 2020 presidential election. 2020 presented election administrators with unprecedented challenges while drawing a record number of voters to the polls. Most New Yorkers shifted the way they cast their ballots, voting early or by mail for the first time. New Yorkers handled these challenges with grace, like strap hangers switching trains due to overnight maintenance. Handling those changes was a massive undertaking, and we want to commend the Board of Elections and poll workers for their tireless work behind the scenes, ensuring a smooth election day, given the circumstances. That's not to say there weren't any hiccups, as New Yorkers pointed out during our hearing. The issues we heard about last week include misprinted absentee ballot envelopes sent to voters, delays in updating the absentee ballot tracking system, disproportionately long lines at several early voting sites, and the inability to register to vote online. New York City voters deserve to have their government officials get to the bottom of these issues and take action to address them. The Voter Assistance Advisory Committee will review the testimony provided and pair that with voter data analysis to determine our recommendations for improving city elections. We will publish those recommendations in our annual voter analysis report in the spring of 2021. Looking ahead to 2021, we are excited to launch our voter education campaign for ranked choice voting in the coming weeks. There has been significant interest in our plans, including a city council hearing last week. Our executive director testified at that hearing, so I will turn to Amy Loprest for her report on that and other work by CFB staff.
Muted.
Thank you. A week ago Monday, I tested myself and our Assistant Executive Director for Public Affairs, Eric Friedman, testified at a city council hearing about our plans to educate the voters about ranked choice voting. We testified that we're dedicated to helping New Yorkers fully participate in ranked choice voting, which is designed to give all voters a bigger say in who gets elected to city office. For voters, casting a ranked choice voting ballot is straightforward. They can rank 5 candidates in order of their preference. We have been working on our ranked choice voting education efforts all year. Throughout the 2020 elections, we provided community organizations with educational training and materials to empower voters to cast by mail or during early voting. We plan to build on those successful partnerships for ranked choice voting. We welcome any organization in New York City who want to be involved in our efforts to educate the voters about ranked choice voting to come forward, and we are confident that with support from our community partners, government and elected officials, we will educate voters about ranked choice voting, starting with the special election that is going to happen on February 2nd in Queens. The only other statement I have is, as Chair Schaefer said, an enormous amount of, today is our first public funds payment of the 2021 election, and an enormous amount of work went into getting us to this point from the staff, and also working remotely for a large portion of the time that preparation was done. So I really would like to echo his statement to commend the staff, and while the people involved are too numerous to name now, I will just highlight 2 people who did all the very, very time-consuming, detailed work to get the actual payment made, and those are our 2 payment coordinators, Julius Diaz and Liana Boss. But again, it was a communal effort by many, many members of the staff, and I commend all of the staff for their hard work.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is to vote on the 2021 pre-ballot payments. Before we make a motion, I'll ask our Executive Director, Amy Loprest, to lay out.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair Schaefer. The following candidates have qualified for public funds payments by demonstrating support from their communities. To be eligible for payment, each candidate met a 2-part fundraising threshold based on small contributions raised from city residents and demonstrated that their campaigns are complying with the law. There are 14 city council candidates who qualify to receive a maximum public funds payment of $160,444 today. Notably, there are 45 candidates receiving a public funds payment today for the first time, a sign that the new 8-to-1 matching rate is drawing new candidates to run for office. For the office of mayor, 2 candidates have qualified for payment. Eric Adams, $4,388,102. Scott Stringer, $3,330,535. For controller, 1 candidate has qualified. Brad Lander, $2,344,442. For borough president, 2 candidates. Benjamin Kalos for Manhattan Borough President, $460,651. Stephen Matteo for Staten Island Borough President, $382,722. For City Council, 56 candidates have qualified for public matching funds. In District 1, Maud Marin, $160,444. Christopher Marte, $159,779. In District 3, Eric Botcher, $160,444. In District 5, Billy Friedland, $137,803. Kim Mascaratello, $160,444. Trisha Shamara, $109,075. In District 6, Sarah Lind, $120,179. In District 7, Shauna Breu, $160,301. Marty Allen Cummings, $160,444. Daniel Cohen, $160,444. In District 8, Diana Yale, $82,982. In District 10, Carmen De La Rosa, $160,420. Angela Fernandez, $107,981. Joanna Garcia, $160,444. Josue Perez, $54,340. In District 14, Perina Sanchez, $160,444. Yildel Katapia, $66,842. In District 16, Althea Stevens, $81,419. In District 18, Amanda Farias, $160,444. In District 19, Tony Avella, $84,018. Richard Lee, $155,648. In District 20, Hai-Ling Chen, $72,101. Sandra Ung, $140,068. In District 22, Leonardo Bularo, $116,082. Evie Hansopoulos, $97,189. In District 25, Shikhar Krishnan, $93,366. In District 26, Lorenzo Bria, $65,573. Julia Foreman, $48,321. Brent O'Leary, $106,620. In District 29, Lynn Schulman, $160,444. In District 30, Juan Ordila, $74,229. In District 32, Michael Scala, $41,078. Felicia Singh, $93,594. In District 33, Elizabeth Adams, $160,444. Stuart Sherman, $50,046. Benjamin Solitaire, $48,404. April Sabum, $72,192. In District 34, Jennifer Gutierrez, $94,582. In District 35, Crystal Hudson, $160,444. In District 38, Alex Aviles, $106,750. In District 39, Shahana Hanif, $160,444. Justin Krebs, $154,470. Brandon West, $117,409. In District 40, Rita Joseph, $145,958. Blake Morris, $54,697. Josh Pierre, $115,003. In District 42, Wilfredo Florentino, $64,463. Nikki Lucas, $126,282. In District 46, Gardy Brazella, $157,776. R. Dimple Willibus, $97,489. In District 47, Stephen Patzer, $107,312. In District 48, Stephen Saperstein, $160,444. In District 49, Amoy Barnes, $160,444. Camilla Hanks, $83,440. Ronti Onagela, $39,064. Kelvin Richards, $46,512. The staff's recommendations for public funds payments breakdown by office: $7,718,637 for mayor, $2,344,442 for comptroller, $843,373 for borough president, and $6,357,073 for city council, for a grand total of $17,263,525. Staff makes these recommendations for the board to vote on.
We can't hear you. You're frozen.
Chair, I think you're also muted. So we need a
Bad combination. How am I doing now?
that's better.
All right. I make the motion to approve those payments. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda are candidate appearances with respect to audits and proposed penalties from the 2017 election cycle. The first candidate listed is Richard Dietl. So if Mr. Dietl and the staff from the CFP would come on.
Hello, to take us off mute, right?
Hi, we're off mute.
Good morning.
Morning.
I hear you, Mr. Dietl there.
Oh, is it the
The camera, hit the camera.
Mhm.
There, you see us
Please
now?
now?
Yes, there you are. Thank you.
Good
So
morning.
let me just, good morning and thank you for joining us. I'll briefly outline our procedure. The staff from the CFB will go first and very briefly just tee up the issues to be discussed. I'll then turn to you for your presentation. There may be some questions from the board, some responses from CFB staff. I'll go back to the CFB staff at the end, see if they have anything, and if you need a final word, be happy to give it to you as well. So that's how we proceed. By Joseph. So why don't you start?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Schaefer and members of the board, Executive Director Loprest, Ms. Thompson, and Mr. Dietl. I'm Joseph Gallagher, Senior Associate Counsel for the Campaign Finance Board, and appearing remotely with me today is Julius Diaz, an auditor at the CFB. Before the board this morning is the matter of the Richard Dietl campaign in the 2017 election for mayor. The campaign was not a participant in the program. CFB staff recommends that the board find the campaign committed the following 7 violations of the Act and board rules: failing to provide bank and merchant account statements, failing to report transactions, failure to document transactions, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for receipts, filing a late disclosure statement, accepting an over-the-limit contribution, and accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships. The campaign contests these violations and penalties.
Thank you. Mr. Dietl, the floor is now yours.
Okay, I'd like to introduce my general counsel, Kate Thompson, who's been handling this. First of all, I want to thank you, everybody, for this hearing and allowing me to explain what happened during the campaign. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Thompson. Thank you.
I will be wearing my mask for the duration of the hearing because we're obviously within 6 feet of each other. So if you can't hear me, just please let me know. Again, I'd like to thank the board this morning for hearing us and allowing us to protest some of these violations. And of course, Joe Gallagher, he's been very helpful with having us, get through and understand a lot of these violations. I worked with Mr. Dietl on his campaign in 2016 and 17. I have recently stepped back in to assist in the absence of our campaign treasurer, Mr. Viola, to assist with piecing together transactions submitted on behalf of the campaign and attempting to rectify the violations and penalties the campaign received. As I believe the board is aware, given my response to the penalty notice, that Mr. Viola was the treasurer of the campaign, and he also handled Mr. Dietl's business and personal financials. And in and around 2019, we became aware of some discrepancies with the campaign's financials. It was further investigated, and we uncovered criminal activity and at the very least, a breach of fiduciary duty in its dealings with Mr. Dietl's financials. We believe that this is relevant here today because Mr. Viola was entrusted with the responsibility of treasurer of the campaign. At this point, I would like to give Mr. Dietl the opportunity to go into a little more detail as to the circumstances surrounding Mr. Viola so you can better understand our situation.
Mr. Viola was my CFO, which at the time when I decided to run for mayor, I brought him in to head up the campaign and oversee all the financing. I learned about in 2019, I started to learn what his activities were, not just with the campaign, with my IRS, my state taxes. I found that he stole money. Subsequently, he was arrested on 2 felonies for embezzlement. And now all of a sudden we found out about the campaign finance. Anytime he got a notice that was supposed to react to notices, he would throw them in the garbage. And he put me in a predicament with my company where I was about to go bankrupt. Not just the campaign finance, not just my mayor run, my own company that I've been in business 36 years ago. I retired from the police department. I started the business. I love New York City. That's one of the reasons why I ran for mayor. I love to protect the people of New York City. And I thought that I was being protected by him on my finances. And what I did was I raised all the money. I didn't take any matching funds. And I went out there and raised money. I presumed I was going to run on a Democratic line, which I was knocked off the Democratic line. I was knocked off every line where I had to run with no line at all. I refused to just give up, and I kept it to the end. And I was able to raise over $1 million, and I kept it to the end. Then I started to learn, not just with the campaign finance, we started getting notices that he improperly didn't do these things that he was supposed to do. Again, I just reiterate back to my company. He embezzled $1 million at least out of our company, and he was forcing me to go bankrupt. I subsequently took 2 mortgages on my home to try to pay for my business. We're in a very dire area right now. My business is off about 45%. I'm trying to survive in my business right now, and I want to comply with the campaign and let you understand. We have the police report, we have the judge's thing about him pleading guilty to these felonies, and the felonies are on misappropriation, fraud, and grand larceny from this company and the other company. He had his son working. I still don't know what happened. I'm pleading upon you people at Campaign Finance to understand what I'm going through right now. And again, I want to comply with everything I'm supposed to do. But when you have somebody there that you trust, he was here 10 years. He was at my daughter's wedding. I trusted him with my life. So I sometimes trust but verify, everyone says. I got into a predicament where if he tells me something, I trusted him. And then I found out that he wiped out my accounts in my main business. He didn't care about the campaign. All he cared about was taking money, and that's the predicament I'm in. So I want to just throw myself on to you guys to please try to understand what I went through. If I did something wrong and understood it, then I should pay for it. But in this circumstance, he was handling all my finances. And again, we have copies of the police reports of the arrest and also from the judges of him pleading 2 felonies. And that's why I think I'm here today.
What jurisdiction did you plead? Just what jurisdiction did he plead guilty in? Was it
Manhattan, New York City County,
New York, Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, New York City, and Supreme Court Judge Michelle Rodney, and we have all the paperwork from the Manhattan Supreme Court where he pleaded guilty for Penal Law 155-35 and Penal Law 155-25 in the Supreme Court. He pleaded to the felonies, and the part of the thing that's going on, he's supposed to do restitution. We've never seen any restitution. We've never seen anything. And right now we're in a predicament right now. I'm trying to keep the business going. We're all facing the same, thing with the COVID. And I'm just pleading with you at the campaign finance to try to understand what happened to me during this time, during the campaign, when I thought everything was being taken care of and being done the proper way. I only learned after the fact, after I found out he was stealing, that he was taking all these responses and putting them in a garbage can and not following through. Not just this, with my IRS, my state taxes, sales tax, and he put me into a predicament where I just wanted to go bankrupt. I'm not going bankrupt. I'm just trying to survive, and I just would love you to take this into consideration of what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Dito. So we believe this issue clearly impacted Mr. Viola's care of the campaign finances and reporting. It's had a major impact on our ability to respond to what has been reported by Mr. Viola, and without his assistance, we've obviously had obstacles in obtaining any sort of account documents. He's named on all the documents. With that being said, I'll turn to the violations. And again, without the assistance of Mr. Viola, we don't really have any additional information by way of documents or insight as to what happened with a lot of these transactions. I will just note on violation number 3, failing to document transactions. That involves, now where did this go? Okay. Exhibit 1. We did what we could to review Exhibit 1 in comparison to any bank statements we had available to us. We did find some inconsistencies where, for instance, about 11 down, the payee is AS Wireless. The date is July 3rd, 2017, the amount $70. We did find this amount in our bank statements. Also on August 21st, 2017, for the amount of $750.49. We did find this transaction on our bank statements, but the payee was different. It was actually Facebook, and it was reported as Jump 450 Media LLC. So we believe that there's a very strong possibility that there were a lot of clerical errors in the reporting by Mr. Viola. So not that these were all unclear transactions, but that there may very well be clerical errors, and we don't have access to the bank accounts to look further into that.
I think it's very important, if I may, excuse me, Kate, if I may, I tried to subpoena the records from the bank, from the campaign, and what they told me is because he's the campaign finance chairman, the only records could go to him. I've tried to contact him subsequent upon his arrest. He would not cooperate with us any way. I know he's named as far as the campaign treasurer. My problem with this thing is this man committed fraud and grand larceny on me, just with my company, plus with the campaign finance. If anything, he's the one that should be paying for this because he's the one that did the problems here that I'm facing today. And I just, again, I'm pleading, guys, with what's going on right now.
If I could just speak to what Ms. Thompson was just referring to, I think what she's saying, and it is true, that Mr. Viola was reporting transactions but using the incorrect payee. So the Facebook is an issue where hundreds of thousands of dollars were made in Facebook payments directly to Facebook, and it appears, but it's hard to parse without Mr. Viola's own response, that they were paying a consultant or reporting it that the payments were made to a consultant who then was paying the Facebook directly, which wasn't the case if as it appears in the bank statements. So there are things where it definitely seems like there are clerical errors, but it is still a failure to comply with the reporting requirements for transactions and also documenting those transactions as well.
And we do understand that, and again, without the assistance of Mr. Viola, we don't have any further insight into what he was reporting, unfortunately. And that basically goes for the other violations as well. We don't have any additional documentation to provide. I mean, there's failing to report transactions, as you mentioned, with Facebook. That was just a failure for him to comply with his responsibilities as treasurer. Filing a late disclosure statement, the same goes to that. But we don't, again, have any further documentation that we can supply the board with to reduce the penalty as was requested by Mr. Gallagher. In some, we're just asking that you take some factors into consideration when making your final determination. Again, as Mr. Deedle said, we were not part of the matching funds program. We did not receive any matching funds. Also, our unique situation with Mr. Viola, the impact it had on our campaign compliance, our ability to respond to violations and penalties that were assessed. And lastly,
one question. One of the payments that the bank account, I guess it's Exhibit 2 to the penalty notice that the bank account shows but was not reported, was a $25,000 payment to Raymond James, which is a brokerage firm, on February 4th, 2017. Do you have any information as to what that might relate to?
This was in Exhibit 1 or Exhibit 2?
Exhibit 2.
And that was for unreported transactions?
Correct. It's February 14th, 2017, 25,000 Raymond James. It's a brokerage firm. I'm just curious if you have any information as to that.
I mean, I can look at it. I will likely not have any information, and neither would Mr. Deedle, because Mr. Viola was entrusted completely with the oversight of contributions and payments. Oh, I see it right here. Contributions, payments, receipts, record retention. This was all within his responsibility, and we are somewhat in the dark. So that I don't have any information to add, unfortunately. I do apologize on that one.
Understood.
And again, to let everyone really establish what's going on here, he actually took from it. He had accounts in my personal business, my business I have 36 years. He'd give me a paper with a balance in certain accounts, just a piece of paper, which I trusted him that was the balance. He removed monies from even my personal accounts and diverted it into his accounts. Also, he set up, how I caught him, he set up an American Express card where he had the billing going to his home in Queens, where I caught him. That's how I caught him. And then when I talked to him, he said he started to develop headaches. When all the money ran out, when he washed out all my accounts, he had severe migraine headaches. I never spoke to him since then. He left the office. I tried to call him 15 times. Please let me know what's going on. And I was unable to, and I have not spoke to him since he left this office. And I was put in a very bad predicament. And I'm pleading to you, try to understand the predicament. You could ask me any question. I have to act stupid because I do not know. Maybe it's my fault for trusting people, but I do trust people.
So again, in sum, we don't have much as a way of additional documentation. It's just we're hoping that we may have some leniency from the board in consideration of our unique circumstances. And again, Mr. Deedle also runs a business in New York. Clearly, we've been hit hard by the pandemic, and he's doing his best to keep his business open, keep his employees employed, and this penalty will be a financial hardship for Mr. Deedle. So we're just asking that you take all these things into consideration and possibly grant us some leniency in this penalty.
You know, and again, being that he was the campaign finance person, I'd like the penalty to go, and I'll find out where he is so you guys can put some kind of thing on him. He should pay for this. He did this, and he's the one that didn't comply with the regulations of the campaign finance, and he should be the victim. You know, he should be the one that has to pay this.
Under the law, Mr. Deedle, both the candidate and the treasurer are liable, and what I hear you saying, and obviously we will consider, is some accommodation for your personal liability, not the liability of the treasurer, based upon these circumstances, and that's in fact what we will consider.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And if I can just add, and I think everyone has alluded to it, that because there is the liability is jointly and severally the responsibility of the treasurer and the candidate, and is because both the candidate and the treasurer sign the certification and the registration, accepting full responsibility for all compliance with the act and board rules.
Okay.
Mr. Gallagher, did we give notice to the treasurer?
Yes, we did. He received the notice about the meeting today. Once the campaign let me know that he was no longer involved as the treasurer when the enforcement notice goes out. He wasn't on the enforcement. I think we emailed him the enforcement notice, but he wasn't in communication with CFB staff during the enforcement notice process. The treasurer did respond to the draft audit report. He was the one who submitted that response, and looking through it, it was very threadbare. It wasn't a robust response.
Mr. Deedle, do you have an account at Raymond James?
I do not have an account in Raymond James. I'm wondering if Jack has an account, Jack Viola. I'm wondering if he has an account in Raymond James. Now that you just told me this, and I wouldn't be surprised. As far as I'm concerned, it would not surprise me. And I'm gonna look into this and find out exactly. And this again, nothing will shock me with him. He took tickets. He took tickets for his family to fly to Italy on a vacation, a $5,000 vacation to Italy on the American Express card that I pay for, his kids' college educations. So this is during the same period of time. So it would not surprise me if he embezzled money out of his campaign finance for his personal gain also.
Mr. Deedle, the treasurer's name is Jack Viola?
Yes, sir.
Giacchino Viola is his full name.
Can you spell that? And I'm asking, actually, can you spell it the way he's known? You said you have documents showing that he's pled guilty. So he's prosecuted by the Manhattan DA's office. He pled guilty in New York County Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us the name under which he's convicted there?
Yep, it's Giacchino and Viola, the last name, Viola, Giacchino Viola.
Thank you.
If you have the case number there, the criminal case number, why don't you give that to us?
Sure.
It should be the index number.
Right, not the arrest.
That's right.
Okay, 1385-20.
When he pleaded guilty, give the date.
It was October 23rd, 2020.
And this was good. This investigation, it was over a year. Over a year it took for him to plead guilty to this.
And it relates to a grand larceny from your business, Mr. Deedle.
So yeah, 3 counts grand larceny from the business. You see, the problem with all this again is that he was taking petty cash, and the DA's office told me, well, you can't prove that he took it. So these were the only things I could really prove. They want the evidence to go along with. I guarantee there's hundreds of thousands of dollars he's embezzled, but I couldn't prove all of it. So I caught him. The American Express card was the one like, you gotcha. But there was several other things that we're finding now, including my CPA, Tony Rose, who was supposed to be overseeing all my financials. He was just rubber stamping what the other person was doing. It's a terrible predicament that I'm in. I'm trying to clear everything up and keep in business. And then please, respectfully to everyone, please try to understand. Thank you.
Would it, Chair, would it help if I'm not sure if it would help, so I don't, if the Mr. Deedle and would send a copy of that document, if you could scan it and send a copy of it. I don't know if that's necessary, but would that help?
I'll do that, yes.
I mean, maybe someone can the tech person on the call actually take a screenshot? If you hold it up, you're holding something there, and if you'd move it a little bit to the center, because we actually can't see all of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to take a photo of it from there. It would probably be better if you could scan it.
We can scan it.
We can scan and send it to you, no problem.
That would be great.
Great. All right. Is any further questions or any further discussion? I think that was very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Deedle. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. We'll move on to our next candidate appearance, which is William Moore, So if Mr. Moore and the CFB staff would get on to the
Yeah, I'm here. Hello?
move on to that.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you, Mr. Moore. There you are.
Yeah,
And I see the CFB attorney, Cameron Ferrante, is on the screen. Mr. Moore, I don't know whether you were on for my brief description of the way we proceed for Mr. Deedle. Were you listening at that time?
yeah, I listened to some of the stuff that were mentioned.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, just in terms of how we proceed. So I'll ask Mr. Ferrante to sort of describe the issues before us, and then I'll call on you to make your presentation. And so, Mr. Ferrante, why don't you proceed?
Thank you, Chair Schaefer, and good morning, members of the board and Executive Director Lowcrest. As you know, I'm Cameron Ferrante, Senior Associate Counsel for the Campaign Finance Board. With me today is Senior Auditor Donna Ross, and before the board is the matter of the William Moore campaign in the 2017 election for City Council District 18. The candidate was a participant in the program but did not receive public funds. CFB staff recommends that the board find the campaign committed the following 4 violations of the Act and board rules and assess penalties according to the 2017 penalty guidelines. Failing to provide bank statements, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for receipts, failing to file disclosure statements, and failing to respond to the draft audit report. The campaign's contesting these recommended violations and penalties. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moore, the floor is now yours.
Yeah, I'd like to say good morning to everybody that's here today. First and foremost, I had a treasurer named, I believe it was Ralph Poinville, and he pretty much didn't comply with certain things. But regardless of that, I didn't raise one dime for my campaign for 2017 because of the fact that I was also barred from really participating in the campaign finance because I had a prior penalty. I believe it was about $1,500, which I had to subsequently had to pay later on. I believe that year, so that you can find in your records. So therefore, I was barred from ever participating in the campaign finance, the matching funds. I didn't get one dime of public funds or anything like that. So the amount, I believe, of the penalty, if I'm correct, is about $650, and I'm asking the board, with all honesty, to just waive that because as a grassroots candidate, we have a very hard time raising monies to participate for public office. And everything that we do, pretty much I have to wear a lot of hats. And like the last gentleman you spoke about, said that the candidate also have to take liability of certain actions. That is true, and I take full responsibility. But at the same time, my my treasurer was non-functioning, and he was non-functioning because one, we couldn't get any money, and we didn't raise any money. So I'm asking the board, with all honesty and with all fairness, as a grassroots candidate, to please waive the fees because it's really discouraging as a grassroots candidate trying to run for elective office when you cannot really receive any monies from campaign finance, and also you cannot make the matching thresholds and stuff like that. So this whole process is very disheartening.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrante, is there something further you'd like to add?
Not particularly.
All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. We will now go into deliberations to consider these matters, and we'll be back to you in a little while. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, are we ready to resume? So the board has deliberated with respect to the two candidates, and I will outline the proposed resolution, and then we'll have a motion covering both of the candidates. First, Richard Deedle. Now, with respect to the Deedle campaign for mayor in 2017, I'm going to do this in two parts. First, with respect to the campaign and the treasurer, the board finds the following violations and proposes the following penalties. 1, failing to provide bank and merchant account statements, $250. 2, failing to report transactions, $10,000. 3, failing to document transactions, $10,000. 4, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for receipts, $500. 5, filing a late disclosure statement, $1,000. 6, accepting over the limit contributions, $375. Corporation, limited liability companies. Thank you. 7, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, $14,875 for a total of $37,000.
Chair,
With respect,
excuse me, Chair, could you just read number 6 again, because you froze up a little, just so that people, it's caught on the record. All the other ones were caught.
Yes, 6, accepting over the limit contributions, $375, and the total for the campaign and treasurer was $37,000. With respect to the candidate, the board finds the following violations and proposes the following penalties. 1, failing to provide bank and merchant account statement, $250. To report transactions, $1,000. 3, failing to document transactions, $1,000. 4, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for receipts, $500. 5, filing a late disclosure statement, $500. 6, accepting over the limit contributions, $375. 7, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, $14,875 for total penalties of $18,500. Turning to William Moore, the board proposes or makes the following finding. Penalties: 1, bank statements violation, but 2, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for receipts, violation, no penalty. 3, failing to file disclosure statements, violation, no penalty. 4, failing to respond to the draft audit report, violation, no penalty, for a total penalty of $0. I'll move the approval of those findings and penalties. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, we now turn, hold on, let me get this back up on my screen.
I think you have to do the ratification of the special election payment.
I'm sorry, my system didn't permit me to hear what you just said, Rick.
I think
We need to ratify
yes,
special election payments that you had approved.
Yes, you want to tee that up?
Sure. On November 30th, the board chair, staff recommended and the board chair approved payments in the 2020 special election in Council District 12. Recommended two payments, a payment to Pamela Johnson for $45,836 and to Kevin Riley of $132,077. On the second scheduled payment date of December 10th, there were no recommended payments, so no payments were made. So those numbers are the totals for those candidates in the special election. The staff is asking the board to ratify the chair's approval of those payments.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Yes, I abstain since it was my decision. Motion carries. Very good. Finally, we have the petition of Anthony Herbert to be permitted to participate in the public funds program should he so qualify in his current campaign for public advocate, notwithstanding the a prior breach of certification relating to his 2003 campaign. I'll move the approval of that petition. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? The motion carried.
So-
I will.
For the record, just to be clear, because that you're granting his petition.
Correct.
We are granting his
Okay.
petition.
I just
That
wanted
is
for the
correct.
record to be absolutely clear. Thank you.
Yes, yes. And finally, I move that we go into executive session. And since we have nothing to report back on, we will directly adjourn from the executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Our public meeting is now over. Wish you all happy holidays and a healthy month until we see you again in January. Thank you very much.
Thank you.